I'll get your thoughts first from you, Gabe. I mean, Dame's been playing out of his mind for the last month, a month and a half, but last night was just absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, like, what else even needs to be said? It's just, I think I tweeted it yesterday when he did it. I'm like, hey, the way we got to talk about this man among top scorers, I feel like he don't get enough recognition for that. But yeah, especially over these last 2 months, he even said it himself last night, dealing with some shorthanded lineups, having to come out and play like that. All love from my side, man. Absolutely crazy achievement. I think they said like highest true shooting, least amount of minutes in a 70-point game. Just like the rate at which he was scoring has pretty much never been seen before. And if it has, it was back in Wilt's era. So like definitely one of the best scoring performances we've ever seen live.
The 82% true shooting was like, when they said that, I'm like, is that true? And I looked at the stats, I'm like, it is. It was crazy, man. When he had 41 in the first half, I didn't think that the game would be competitive long enough for him to get to like upper 60, 70 range. But the Rockets tried to make some adjustments. They tried to double Dame as soon as he touched half court, which kind of worked in the third quarter, but then he went nuclear in the fourth. Dame's just one of them dudes that can get hot. Like we know this. Like you said, Devin, he's been going off for like the last month or so. I think he's averaging like 39 or something over his last 10 games or so. Like it's been incredible. We know that Dame is this good. It's good to see him healthy because last season he dealt with a lot of injuries. So I think a lot of people just kind of forgot how good he is, and it's great that he's still playing at this production, even though he's getting a little, older in basketball years. But it was something to watch. It's crazy. We've seen 2 70-point games in one season. Like that's unprecedented. I didn't have that on my radar coming into the year, but that's just how talented these guys are. Like, Damian Lillard is one of the best scorers, not just of this generation, but I would say all time, just how he can fill up the stat sheet, man. So shout out to him. The Rockets, we're getting a lot of hate though on Twitter, man. Like people want Stephen Silas gone, which I have a lot of thoughts about that, but we'll talk about Dame right now. He was incredible, but it's kind of sad that he has to go to these levels for this team to maybe be a playing team at best. It's just, that's the one thing that sucks.
Yeah, that's definitely the tough part. They now sit in the 11 seed. They're only a half game out of the play-in, so they're right in range. Of course, we know how tight the Western Conference is. Anyone can make a 4 or 5 game run and jump themselves up a few spots, but Damian Lillard keeps playing the way he has, and they're definitely going to have a shot to do so. You guys touched on it all. Great performance from him. The fact that we've seen 2 70-point games this year is absolutely ridiculous. And it begs the question, I know some people have been discussing it over the last 24 hours, and I'll ask you first, Tyrik. Do you think there's any chance that within like the next 5 to 10 years, someone actually breaks Wilt's record?
5 to 10. I'm going to say no. 100 points is a lot. That is a lot. And Dame just had one of the most efficient 70-point games that you can have. And a lot would have to go right. It would have to be one of those situations like kind of Kobe's 81 where you're losing, at that point, like your team's not very good. You're losing to the opponent, but you're still getting your buckets. You have to shoot a lot of free throws. Might need some overtime. Like that's going to take a lot for somebody to score 100. So within the next 5-10 years, I would say no. Will it happen eventually? I would say probably, but not anytime soon. We all might be pretty old by the time somebody drops 100 in the game.
What I will say is I do think in the next 5 to 10 years, if things continue like at the rate they're going, because, they could implement a rule change in 2 years that just kind of slows scoring down again. You never know. But if things keep trending in this direction, I do think in the next 5 to 10, you could see Kobe's get broken. Just given the fact of like these 2 performances happening in the same season. And both of them were kind of similar circumstances with like shorthanded teams. I think when Donovan Mitchell had his game, Darius Garland was out. So it's like guys really got to step up because their teammates just aren't in the rotation. And so given that, I think there could be a guy that comes along. And, I know Damian Lillard's game didn't go to overtime, but maybe I don't – did Donovan Mitchell's? I can't remember.
Yeah, it did.
I thought it did, but yeah. Even in that case, like say a game goes to double overtime, a guy stays hot. Like you might see something like that. We just got the second highest scoring game in the history of basketball like a week ago. So, I mean, things like this really could happen. And given the fact that Kobe did what he did in one of like the lowest scoring eras of basketball, I think today, like just look at it. Now we have 3 players active in the league that have scored at least 70. Like that number 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think Devin Booker got it in 2017. So 6 years ago, that number was 0. And just to see that, like, surely somebody could probably hit 80 in the next couple of years, man. Because even
that's a big ask. That is a big ask, man.
It's just the fact that, like, go back, take yourself to like 2015 or 2016, and how many guys even had a 60-point game on their resume? Like, it wasn't that many. Like, Kobe had it, LeBron had his one, Melo. But beyond that, that was like 3 guys who even had a 60-point game on their resume for like a good stretch. And now you have 3 guys that are at 70.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's just gonna take a lot for even 81, man. 81 is kind of crazy too. I don't know who could do it. I mean, there's definitely guys that have that scoring ability, but man, that is a big ask, bro. Like, even, I mean, 70 is a big ask, but 81, that's crazy. And then jumping up to 100, that's almost insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot for that to happen. Like you mentioned, Tyrik, there's going to have to be a lot of free throws. And similar to how Dame did it, you're probably going to have to get stupid hot from 3, especially if you're talking about touching Kobe's record, if you're talking about touching Wilt. I mean, there's just not enough time to go and get up 35 shots in the paint. I mean, it's just not going to happen if you're going to get to that level of production. So there's a select few guys that are going to be able to do it, because you're going to have to be a Dame or a Steph, or if Luka gets really hot from 3 run night, because you're going to need a lot of 3-point shots for that to happen. So it's possible, but it's definitely going to be tough to get that one eclipsed. But full credit to Damian Lillard. Historic performance from him as he continues to be one of the best scorers of this generation. And for someone that we were having in debates with Trae Young during the offseason when we were making our point guard lists, that debate is long gone throughout the course of this season. That is for damn sure.
And people got to stop, like, because this, of course, is the discourse I see when I get on Twitter earlier today. People are like, oh, like, because they were saying, like, Dame has more 60-point games than, like, a decent-sized list of NBA Hall of Famers, like, more than all of them combined, which is it's crazy. Like, Damian Lillard has done that, but people are like, but he doesn't have any rings. He doesn't have any playoff success. And I'm like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because if Dame went ahead and requested out to a team that was already super established, people would be mad as hell. But they clown him for trying to stay in Portland and believing that, you know, he can win there. Like, it's so, like, you can't win either way. It's like, oh, he's great at scoring the basketball, blah, 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 but he doesn't have any rings. Like, people can still be great players without having any championships. There are plenty of Hall of Fame guys that never won a championship, plenty of Hall of Fame guys that never made the finals, and they are still great players. I just hate how NBA fans nowadays weigh rings so heavily. It kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, like, context is an important thing. And especially when you're talking about a guy who has not left the team he was drafted by. And obviously, I haven't recently historically went through all of the Trailblazers playoff runs with Dame. But even still, there's never been a Portland roster that people have looked at. And it's like, yeah, that's a surefire title contender. That just hasn't existed. They've only got to the conference finals once. They weren't expected to win that series. I mean, like you say, yeah, Dame hasn't got the titles. He hasn't had as much playoff success. But the context in which he hasn't got that success is really important, especially for a guy that stayed with the team that he was drafted by and hasn't surrounded him with that much talent.
And I do think the thing with Damian Lillard is the fact that in the player mobility era, like, he's been on his same team. And in doing that, it's not like it's like, you know, like a Kings with DeMarcus Cousins, where it's like they have this generational player, best in the league at his position, but they're not even in the playoffs. Like, sure, Dame's had he's had some bad playoff series, like against New Orleans in 2018 comes to mind. But he's also had moments like the Rockets series, or, you know, like the Oklahoma City series, where he elevates his game and creates all-time moments in the postseason. So it's not like he's some guy that just gets to the playoffs and just completely folds every year. Because you see that narrative of plenty of guys like Paul George, DeMar DeRozan come to mind. And it's like, oh, solid regular season players, but then no, like, playoff success. And it's like, Dame has had playoff success. He just hasn't had final success. He's had good moments. He's elevated his game plenty of times. And he's created moments. Like, I think he's a player that, I saw somebody say, like, I hope people don't start talking about him like he is like Adrian Dantley in a couple of years. Like, nobody's going to compare him to Adrian Dantley. People are going to remember the things that Damian Lillard did. That shot in Paul George's face, that shot to take out the Rockets in his third or fourth season of playing basketball, like, that's some crazy stuff, and that's some all-time stuff. And I can speak for myself when I say, yeah, in 20 years, and I remember basketball players I watched and my favorite guys to watch, he's going to be up there with the top of them because he's just such a dynamic, fun scorer to watch and has created a lot of memories for a lot of people.
Definitely. And like Devin said, context is everything. You also got to remember he played in the same era as Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors dynasty. So nobody in the Western Conference was really getting off during that time, except for maybe the one-off year where the entire Warriors franchise was decimated by injuries and the Lakers won a championship. Other than that, the Warriors have not lost a playoff series in the Western Conference since, 2014? So, it's tough. Like, he's played in the same conference as the Warriors his entire career, and they've just so happened to be one of the most successful franchises, in a 10-year span in NBA history.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that the number 2 team in Houston wasn't too bad themselves either. But, yeah, like you say, Dame's done his thing, regular season, postseason. Last night was just a great encapsulation of how good of a career he's had. And even though he's going to turn 33 this summer, at least a top 5 point guard still in the league, and is probably arguably the only reason that Portland have a chance of making the play-in tournament this year. So kudos to Damian Lillard. Great night from him. Great run of performances from him over the last couple of months. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more NBA content, and we'll see you guys in the next one.